Welcome back to KickBack. I am now joined by Andrea. Andrea, thank you so much for joining me today,
Thank you for having me.
for sharing your story, and I just really appreciate you being open to do so.
It's my pleasure, honestly. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And so you wanted to share about the concept of being diagnosed late in life
Mhm.
with ADHD, and can you share about a little bit about what that was like?
Um, it was a lot of denial.
Right.
It was a lot of denial first. I knew a lot about neurodivergence because it is close to me, but couldn't picture myself as being someone who would ever be diagnosed. I managed to fly under the radar,
Mhm.
I guess you could say. I don't have the typical ADHD traits or symptoms or yeah, I do now
Right.
in hindsight, in reflecting. And now I also have a better understanding of why and how my life and the events that I've experienced created some of the cover-ups. So it was um, it was a little surprising, and I sometimes still I'm learning to
Right.
go, oh, that's also something that is neurodivergent.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it something that was like validating in the sense of like, oh, that makes total sense, or was it like, what was that experience like to receive that diagnosis?
So my first feeling when you said that was a little bit of sadness.
Mhm.
For a moment, I felt validated,
Mhm.
and then I felt sad, realizing that such a huge part of me and the things about me, the way I do things, all kind of stemmed from things in my earlier childhood.
Right.
And so I had to do a lot of reflecting um, and forgiving and realizing that I don't need to go and unpack it all at the same time.
Right.
But yes, it was validating for a moment. I was like, okay, so this, all of a sudden I felt the way I do towards people who are close to me, the compassion that I give
Right.
them, I suddenly gave myself. But then it was, oh, like, so I did reflect back and I made the decision that I did not have to unpack it all immediately. So slowly over time, I will heal from some of those things. But yeah.
And I think that can be, I think a lot of people can make that mistake of once it's almost like an addiction in a way of like wanting to unpack it all. Like you go, and that can't be healthy to be able to unload all of that weight that you've carried over that time.
It is the OCD tendency. So that's one of my earlier diagnoses was OCD, and it is the OCD tendency to ruminate and not be able to let go. So like you said, addiction, sort of like you hold on to the need to ruminate on it until you feel you've reached a conclusion. But this could go on for a very long time. So I had to make a conscious choice and remind myself that it wasn't something I needed to do all at once. So, I mean, it's a process. It's a growth process. I can't say I will ever regret learning about myself, even though sometimes it's difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
And you hinted on it there about the idea of treating yourself the way that you would have treated like a loved one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I did. I put that into practice, and I know that we've talked about that before. When we are feeling low and unsure about, when we feel we need rest as individuals, oftentimes I should be doing something. I should, or, I'm not accomplishing anything. And then you have guilt. But what would you say to someone, your young adult child or a best friend, a coworker? The work will be there tomorrow. The rest is important today. And so that is kind of the approach I took, the compassion I would give somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
And in your journey, which we're about to get into, how important is it to ask for help? How important was it for you to ask for help?
When I knew I needed to ask for help, it was I'm gonna say life or death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was that important to ask for help.
Right.
Yeah.
And once I know that's to ask for some, well, tripping over my words, to ask for help can be the most difficult part of the journey.
Yeah.
But once you did ask for help, what was that experience like for yourself?
That's validating. I have a helping person in my life. She is my therapist that I've seen for well over a decade. So she knows me, and she knows that I'm, generally speaking, I'm pretty on top of things and very self-aware. So when I came to her and said, this is my situation, I remember noticing her posture as she completely started to connect with me and empathize. And I was like, okay, she's my ally. She's going to help me. And so I could rest for a moment in her chair, like right. just at ease for just a moment, before I got into my story and unpacking how, the last month has been. And so then it was a sense of control. Before I left that hour-long appointment, I had a sense of a little bit of control over what I felt. I had none before I walked in. Now we had, a step in the right direction, a small plan, a little, and I had her to reach out to if I needed help between this appointment and the not so distant appointment, because we got together closer to make sure that I was making some progress. So it felt, I want to say it felt like the right move. I knew it was the right move. Mm-hmm. By the time I left it, I felt it was the right move, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that there's a lot of stigma and shame that can go around, thankfully that's disappearing, of sharing that you have seen a therapist, right?
Yeah.
And you saw that help. And I think that it should be seen as a more integral piece of the puzzle for everyone dealing with their mental health, because you had that person already in place.
Yeah,
right.
She already knew my background.
Right, and and you were able to see her in a potentially really positive place.
Yeah.
So she was able to see that difference. Yeah. So setting yourself up to have had that, to then seeing that 180. So to speak, was then you've already kind of cleared all those hurdles of who are you, what do you do, how do you she had that education.
Yes.
Can you
so important. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm nodding and I'm agreeing with everything you're saying, and I'm relating it to every area of our life. Mm-hmm. Your family doctor, and your file and your records and your children's file and records, they all go with you. If you are someone who sees a chiropractor or a physiotherapist, and then your visits are fewer, they're further apart now because you're doing really well, right. But then you have you pull a muscle, or then you go back and they already know exactly what's going on with you. It's revisiting and putting another plan in place, but it's solution focused instead of digging up history and reaching when did this start and what's your history been like. It's very solution focused. This is the difference. This is what's happened. Here's what we have to do. And that you can see that in all areas of your life, including your finances. You could be someone who's doing great, had the same job for the last 15 years, great savings, a whole finance plan, and then something changes. You have your person, they've been your person for decades. It's just good to stay on top.
Right.
Stay on top of it.
And why wouldn't we treat our mental health any different than how we treat every other aspect of our life?
I'm biased. I'm definitely biased, but I do not think we should treat our mental health any different. In fact, I think we should treat our brains like we should baby ourselves a little bit. Yeah. Lots of love, lots of compassion, lots of care.
Right. Yeah. Andrea, and so something else that you really wanted to share that's very fresh, and again, I just applaud your courage and ability to come and to share your story in the hopes of somebody else maybe not struggling to the same extent that you did, right? Yeah. And I think that that's incredibly beautiful and powerful. I think that's a real sign of strength.
Thank you.
To be able to do that and come on and share. And so you wanted to touch on the very recent of spring this past year that you experienced a depression, some medication changes, and tying that all into perimenopause as well. Can you share what that journey's been like?
I can. So it started, what I noticed was when my youngest went to school and I was left to my own devices. So now I wasn't regimented throughout the entire day, and I found it very difficult to sit and focus. So I had a list of goals and was very excited to achieve them because I also had no one around. There was no distractions except for my own brain,
right.
which leads into eventually an ADHD diagnosis. But it had never been something that bothered me or it wasn't intrusive until September 2024. And so I spoke to my doctor, and at that time, he suggested perhaps a medication change in the spring, because we know, for me, when the days get shorter and the nights are longer, it's not a good time for me to change any kind of, if it's working, we stick with it. So perhaps springtime, revisit. And that's what I did. So I went back and he tried me on something different. This would be the first time I changed medication at all in 15 years. And while I was a little worried, I was also a little bit excited to see if this was going to both help and maintain my current mental wellness. Because aside from the brain fog, I was doing great. And spring is a time for me to feel well. Days are getting longer, warmer weather. I love spring. So I was, let's do this. So we did. We did it properly. I did it under the guidance of my doctor. It was like a lot of weaning before the other one started. And what ultimately happened, somewhere in the process of leaving one medication and starting another, I experienced some really troubling symptoms. Agitation, frustration, fear, heavy amounts of anxiety. I am a very grateful person. I wake up every morning with a tremendous amount of gratitude, and I couldn't find any. I'm never going to say that I've ever considered not being alive, but I did recognize the warning sign that when I felt it would be easier not to be than to deal with my challenge, then I knew it's time to go back to my doctor. And I said, I don't think this medication is working for me. And it's confusing because the feelings, the symptoms are so real. They feel like they're coming from me, not from any medication. I don't know if that makes sense, but it felt like it couldn't have been the medication. The medication is supposed to be what's helping. Something's wrong with me. But he said, you can stop taking that one right away. It wasn't one that you had to wean off of. And the very first day I wasn't on it, I had the jittery, shaky, agitated feeling was gone. I was not better by any stretch. The steps taken to get better. So the whole thing lasted from the end of March to the end of August, between like weaning off, going through and having what I would call a real true breakdown, and being unable to function for a length of time, and then building myself back up slowly with so much compassion and so much self-care. It took the entire 6 weeks that I expected to take for the medication to take the new stuff that I knew worked to take effect, before I started to feel like I could do anything outside of what I absolutely had to do. So quite a journey there. Mix it all in with what I do. Well, what I did think was the brain fog in the first place would be perimenopausal hormones. So we have, the fact that I am now perimenopausal. I have mental health stuff happening, depression, anxiety, OCD, and now my newly diagnosed ADHD. And then couple that with the symptom that brought it all on, which was the inability to focus and the brain fog. And that is just so many concurrent things happening. That being able to sit here and smile about it makes me feel like I'm on the right track. Getting the help I needed, getting on the right medication, and getting proper diagnosis, so that I can put in place the tools that help me every day. Did I even answer the
Yeah,
question?
no, that was perfect. That was great. And I think that it's something people hold. I think people need to learn a lot more self-advocacy and being able to say that, because the doctors are the experts and they've gone to school, they've done their stuff, they've had their experience, but then they suggested the medication, right? And then everybody's different.
Yeah.
And your body just happened to respond differently than that, which put you down that dark path. And then, but you have the ability to say that that's not me.
Something's wrong. Yes.
Something's wrong. Where I think a lot of people get stuck on that, and then the situation can get worse if they don't know that they're able to say, you know what, I got to put my hand up. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And like people would just say, oh, they're the experts. They know their stuff. That's what they're talking about, which they do. But then everybody's different. Yeah. There's always an asterisk. There's always that line there that says that this may not be the case, blah, 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 blah.
Yes. If I could just add from both a patient and a professional perspective, as a social service worker, you're taught to never make the assumption that you know more than the person sitting in the chair talking about themselves.
Right.
So I do go into my doctor's office with the assumption that he is going to trust what I say. And when I do that, I don't give him, there's no choice. Like I think he understands that about me. I'm not going to if I'm telling you something's wrong, you need to listen to me.
Right.
And we need to come to an agreement about what the best course of action is together. But I'm also very vulnerable at the time. And when somebody's vulnerable and in a state of crisis, they might not feel like they can advocate for themselves. So it was tricky. I really like my doctor. He takes a lot of things very, very seriously, and he never hesitates to send a referral.
Right.
And I appreciate that about him a lot. Yeah. So, but yes, being able to advocate for yourself is a little bit easier if you have a professional that will listen and understand that you know how you feel.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough. Not all doctors are
right.
That.
Yeah. Right. And
yeah.
that can be, if you are met with that can be difficult in itself. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Andrea. I really appreciate you taking the time.